Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Deaths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, this one is going to be about the When Malicious Cave, so this is something that can be used even later down the line, because what these element caves do is give you a malicious difficulty one, which is basically like a heroic, or if you want to call it an EX boss, is like on a level like one of the extreme ones. But you basically would do this in order to try and get a weapon break limit item for SSR weapons. We call them bricks, but the official name is I do believe Argentium or something like that. It's a weird name to pronounce, but you definitely want to try and get that because that's a very good first clear reward, and it does reset when the cave comes back. So again, use this as a reference, or just if you want to try and get like a general idea of how the fight works. But starting off, this fight has 330 million HP. Again, that's about the same level as Heroic or the Extreme EX bosses. It's around that same ballpark. And also, I do believe the nerfed versions of Guardian Plus have about that same amount of HP as well. Only, unlike a raid, you have to do this on your own. It also has that same Heroic EX boss type thing for some of those fights where it has resistance towards anything that isn't elemental advantage. So use fire for this if you don't want your damage reduced, and if you want to land debuffs, because unless it's a guaranteed debuff, somebody that isn't fire isn't going to land it. Don't even try. But something else that probably shouldn't be tried either, don't try to delay its turns. That means trying to apply Dizzy to it, or trying to apply stuff like Paralyze or Flame Bind. They won't delay the turns. They can land, but they won't delay the turns. You also can't increase its maximum ore count, meaning basically if it has like if an enemy has like 4 maximum ores before they use their OD, you can't increase it to 5. That's what that basically means. So you can't use that one as well. For instance, there's a skill called Black Propaganda among the souls. I think you get it from Mordred. That doesn't work here. But speaking of stuff that doesn't work, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. You don't want to use normal attacks and bursts for this fight. I mean, of course you're going to do normal attacks and bursts if you have your stuff going, but don't try to focus on them is what I mean, because abilities is going to be the way to go. It has resistance towards normal attacks and bursts. I do believe that normal attacks is a resistance of 50%. I'm not entirely sure. Burst, however, if I'm correct, is reduced by 90%, so you get like 10% of the damage you normally do. So focus on ability damage. You also will end up having some benefits by using your abilities anyways. Because if the boss is hit with about 10 red abilities, doesn't have to be in one turn, it can be across multiple turns. I've got the wrong info here a little bit after playing around with the fight myself. But if you have 10 red abilities used at any point, it keeps track throughout the whole thing. It's going to self-debuff itself, so it will take more damage. It doesn't count as a defense debuff. I think it's like a final damage increase or something like that. But it will also lower all your red abilities cooldowns by 2. So they'll be back 2 turns faster. You do take a small AoE nuke. Be wary of that, because if your HP is too low, you're still going to get sniped. Now, what I mean by low damage nukes, there's usually around the ballpark of like 5,000 or less. And that kind of is small if your HP is like up there. But again, just be wary of that. Speaking of getting nuked, the normal OD is 5 random hits on the Hime. If you are unlucky, or if a Hime somehow has like attention drawn to themselves, like I think Ignis can do that for one of her things, be careful because they might get nuked off the planet from that, because that normal OD actually does do a lot of damage if all 5 hits land on the same person. So make sure you don't see your characters getting one shot. For reference, I've attempted this fight with like roughly like 20,000 to 25,000 HP, and I've still seen somebody get one shot. So be careful with that. Raging is an AoE nuke, but it's also going to self-bust the boss with wind elemental attack. So yeah, that insane damage I just mentioned can get even stronger if you don't pay attention. So take some precautions against it, or even just remove the buff, because you can do that. You can't remove the resistance towards normal attacks and bursts, though, unfortunately. Those are just permanently there. Now, speaking even further of nukes, this is where the triggers come in. First turn, you're going to get a pretty sizable nuke. I think it's like a 5-digit nuke. It's going to apply Dizzy and Confusion, along with the combo rate debuffs. Now, you don't worry too much about the combo rate debuffs. The reduced chances of doing double and triple attack, don't worry about it too much. The issue is the Dizzy and the Confusion, because that's going to have a very good chance of interrupting your character's turns. They can still use abilities, but it's going to interrupt them when they try to do like damage or burst or anything like that, and that actually matters for some characters. Confusion is even worse, because if Confusion goes off, your character's going to smack another team member for like 1,500 damage, which isn't much, but it does add up. And these do seem to have a high rate of activation, so you may want to take some protection against it, like some element block or some removal, but keep that in mind. It's also going to apply a special debuff to anyone that didn't use a red ability on turns that aren't the 5-turn trigger. It does do it on the first turn, though. What this means is that special debuff is going to count as a stack on those characters that manage to get hit by it. If that character didn't use a red ability, you're guaranteed to get hit by it, unless it's like a turn count that's a multiple of 5. On top of this, the turn cards that are multiple of 5, you'll get hit by a nuke that does 2,000 damage and 10,000 for every debuff that's on that Hime. So, say one Hime has 2 stacks, another has 3. The one with 2 stacks will get hit for 2,000 damage plus 20,000, but the one with 3 stacks will get hit with an additional 30,000 instead of 20,000. So that can be pretty dangerous. Dizzy and Confusion is also going to get applied on that 5th turn trigger as well, so be very careful of that. So every 5 turns you're going to have to worry about that. You can reduce the damage you take from it, but if the boss is buffed, it will increase the damage you take, so be careful. At half HP left, it's going to repeat the turn 1 trigger, but it's going to deal less damage, and it's not going to apply the special debuff. So that's something to know. And at 20% HP left, everyone's going to get nuked around the same amount of damage as a 50% trigger. But the boss is going to get a little bit mad and actually self-buff itself. It's going to give attack up, triple rate up, and spread. This is the point where you try to finish the fight. So that's something to know. And if you happen to take 30 turns or more, this is where things get very bad, because you're going to activate the failure trigger, which is basically eating 100,000 damage AoE, period. All your buffs even get removed before the damage goes off, so there's no protecting it. And it's going to spam it every single turn from the 30th turn onwards, so if you are not nearly done with the fight, you may want to just give up and retry it. So keep that in mind. Now, one more thing I need to add to this video is basically a few suggestions on some characters you may want to use. This first one's a little bit RNG because of how she works, but she's actually pretty powerful with her ability damage, and that's Amonor, the SSR version of her. Thing is, she gives you a potion, a super potion, which is going to help you with an AoE heal. So putting her in your sub slots, even if you don't put her in front line, is already going to give you a super potion. But if she is on the front line, she's got 2 abilities that can actually deal a decent amount of damage. Like 2 red abilities for that. But one of them takes 12 turns to come back, so that could be a while. Her second ability is a self buff, where she's going to make her next ability damage just hit even harder. But on top of that, she's also going to give herself full burst gauge. That comes in play because when she bursts, she has a chance of resetting her 4th ability. She also has it normally just going through the turns, but she's got a higher chance of resetting it after a burst. That's because her 4th ability will give her a motivation buff, which just ups her ability damage even further, but it also will reset all her ability cooldowns of the other 3 abilities, and that's where that kicks in. The issue is, it has a normal cooldown wait of 99 turns, so you better pray RNG's on your side so you can actually see that come back. Because honestly, with just the stuff I have, I easily see her dishing out like a good 6 million per ability, which does add up quite a bit. And remember, she can basically quad cast those. So, again, it can add up. But, again, she's kind of RNG if you do want to use her. But if you put her in your subs, you're going to get the Super Potion anyway. Super Potions are very good for basically any fight, because it's like a free additional AoE heal. And it's a percentage-based heal too, so it goes off of how much max HP you have. So, that's something to know. Other noteworthy mentions. Brunhilde. The SSR version of Brunhilde. She has a red ability that can be used every single turn. That means she should not be getting hit with that special debuff that often throughout this entire fight. You may want to use her for this. Also, Ignis's SSR version is very noteworthy because she can constantly keep reapplying a whole bunch of stackable debuffs that will increase the damage that an enemy takes. It's not a defense debuff, it is a damage taken debuff. And I do know that's under the same frame as like Bayako and Wound and stuff like that. It adds up, it helps out. So you do want to use her, not to mention she's also buffing like ability damage as well that can be dealt. So yeah, very worth using Ignis. You may even want to use Nurgle as well. She's also her SSR version also is upping ability damage and all that. Plus she can make herself ignore damage she takes for 1 turn. So there's that. But other noteworthy mentions are, if you don't mind her not doing too much because she doesn't have ability damage Daki, because she can actually give like I do believe it's 2 turns of a wind resistance buff to everybody. And if she's not awakened, it's 40%. If she is awakened, it's 50%. So, pretty strong damage protection. Plus, she has drain for her normal attacks that might actually keep your HP up a little bit more. I'm not sure. But, someone that's better suited for this fight and also still gets protection is also Apollo. Removes 2 debuffs off you. Now, remember, I said the whole confusion and dizzy and the combo rate thing, it targets the dizzy and the confusion first. So, she'll definitely remove those if you save her ability for that. It also applies regen as well, so it'll give you some health back. You also will get a 50% damage cut from her as well. I think it's 2 turns, I'm not sure. But it definitely helps for that trigger. You definitely want to have that for that trigger. That trigger that happens every 5 turns, it can massively cut the damage you take from that. Combined with other sources, you might just fully nullify the damage, so keep that in mind. And she also has a red ability as well. It does do Flame Ban, which means it's basically useless in the debuff aspect, but it does still count as a red ability, so that's better than Daki at least. Now, other characters that might actually be useful for us too. She also doesn't have a red ability, but the fire version of Dion, because she can heal you. When she heals you, she gives you wind resistance. She can give you a vigor buff too, which may or may not help you, but more importantly, she can give you normal potions. Normal potions will heal a single character, and it's percentage based off of HP. It will heal more to one character compared to the super potions, and she can keep generating them. I think the super potions is like 40% of your HP, and the normal potions is like 65%. I could be wrong. But she can help you out with surviving that fight. But even better would be the fire version of Phoebe. Because if you happen to have her, she can heal, she can give you vigor, she can give you some protection with some damage reduction that isn't cut, so it stacks with the cuts and all that. And then on top of that too is also that she has a red ability that will also eat orbs off the boss. You can't increase the max orb count, but you can reduce the total amount. So if the boss has like 3 orbs, you can knock them back to 2. Stuff like that. And if I'm going to suggest any souls, there's 3 that come to mind immediately. First off is definitely Edison. Because Edison is very, very good for this fight. A lot of follow-up damage since you're going to be spamming red abilities. And she can also like heal off of that. She can also help your abilities come back a little bit faster. Generally just a good solo for this fight. Kong Ming is another one. Because she's just going to keep stacking buffs and debuffs that will help you survive for longer. Like the boss will deal less, you'll take less damage. So you'll also deal more. She also has a wound debuff too, which I do believe might stack with Ignis. I'm not fully sure, but she can also fully heal one character as long as it's not herself. So there's that. But then on top of that too, there's also Caspar, who's a very good mention here because she has abilities that can come back every single turn. They count as red abilities. You see what I'm going with for that. So yeah, but also an honorable mention would be Medea. Because, again, ability damage, Medea does that. But if you have Edison, don't even worry about Medea. The only thing Medea has above Edison is the fact that she can make everybody's cooldowns come back a little bit faster if you know what you're doing. Which would mean getting Hour of the Overlord along with, I think it's called Golden Wool Mystery, but it's a AoE one-turn removal. But if you're doing things properly with Medea, then she can reduce cooldowns a little bit faster than Edison, but she deals way less damage. So there's that. I wouldn't worry about any of the other souls too much, unless like you need them for like survival or something like that. So that's something to know. I mean, of course you can still do somebody like Benkei, as long as people stay alive, she won't die. So there's that. But I would more focus on Edison, Kong Ming. If you don't have those two, Caspar's next in the line. If you don't have any of those three, maybe Medea. And you really don't have those four, you can try and push it with Solomon, but at that point you kind of just like, I'd say copium. But try and see what helps on that one, if it comes down to it. I mean, you might even find some use for Asclepius in this fight, because you may need the healing and the cleanse. Again, Dizzy and Confusion is annoying for this fight. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this is going to come soon, because of course I'm going to keep posting these videos for all the other element caves. And I want to try and pull a clear video for this as well for fire. Because I like doing these element caves and having them on camera with advantage elements. So that's going to get uploaded at some point, so look forward to that. But anyways, that's all for this. More will come soon, and take care.